This is another Christmas video. Christmas 2019 is here. It is December, so we can do everything Christmassy. And today I thought I'd do something a little different. I love baking, and I found this, it was actually on the Zoella blog, the recipe that I'm going to use today. It was the Christmas gingerbread biscuits, and I am going to turn it into a gingerbread house. I'm going to do some gingerbread biscuits as well, but I'm going to turn it into a gingerbread house. I've got my side set up, my ingredients, my scales, my stand mixer, and just my utensils. My phone is here with the recipe on it. I've also got a little bag of decorating stuff, but obviously we won't be able to decorate until later on once it's cooled. So I want to get this done and in the oven, so I can take it out of the oven and get it on some cooling racks and let it cool, but so that we can decorate, because that is the fun part about doing gingerbread, decorating. So to start, like I say, I've got these, but I just wanted to share these bits with you. I actually got these few bits from my local Tesco's, and I have been into my other local one and they do have them as well. But they are these little Christmas cookie cutters. Got a Santa, a reindeer and an elf, which were by a company called Noel, and they've got some other festive Christmas bits as well, like a spatula and stuff like that. So I am going to make some Christmas ones, and the good thing about these, this is the back. As you can see, the detail doesn't go all the way down, so it presses the detail into the cookies, and then it makes it easier to decorate. You don't have to come up with your own design. So I picked up those. I think they were £1 or £2 for those three. And then I also picked up, I don't want to move it too much because it's got the eggs on it, this right here is a 12-inch round cake stand, and that is what I'm going to be building my gingerbread house onto later. So like I said, I've got everything prepped. That's what I like to do. I've washed my hands, everything is cleaned down. I've used my antibacterial spray, wiped everything, so it's all hygienic, all clean. So let's get into it. Let's make a gingerbread house. Okay, so to start, I'm going to mix all of my dry ingredients. So I'm going to use 400 grams of plain flour. And as you'll see, I've got a separate bowl for this. And the reason I do this is so I've got a bowl later to put like the eggshell in, the rubbish pretty much. So I'm not having to walk backwards and forwards to the bin and drip egg everywhere. Now I was having a little power problem here. Don't know why it was switched on, but it wasn't working. But don't worry, we get it working and it all works out in the end. So like I said, we are starting by mixing all of our dry ingredients. The next thing that we will be mixing in will be 100 grams of granulated sugar. And this is not caster sugar that you'd use for baking. It is the one that you would normally put in like your tea and coffee and things. And then I'm just going to use a little sachet because I only need 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And you can buy those in sachets so they keep fresher for longer. And then we've got 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and 2 teaspoons of ground ginger. And then I'm just going to put that on low just to mix it all together, make sure it's all blended, just so it's easier, so there's no clumps of like spice or anything in any of the biscuits. And then now on to the butter, which I did make a little mistake. I should have took this out the fridge a little bit earlier. It did take me a little longer to blend it, but we need 125 grams of salted butter. This is just the block slab of butter, and I hate the feeling of it, so I keep washing my hands. But yeah, this needs breaking up and like you would make a crumble, mixing it in. Obviously the stand mixer does that, but I did have to give it a little helping hand because, like I said, I forgot to take it out the fridge early enough and it was still a bit too firm. You don't want it melted, but just soft so that it's easy to rub through the dry ingredients. And then the last two ingredients that we are going to add will be 1 large egg, and you want to try and get these as close to the centre of your mixing bowl as possible, just so it's easier to combine, and then 125 grams of golden syrup. When I buy my golden syrup, I do try to get it in a squeezy bottle. It's just so much easier, so much less hassle. And if you keep your spoon warm, it will just all drip off a lot easier. And as you can see, this bowl, I'm using it to put all my dirty utensils and everything in, and my rubbish. And then it's easy to move to the sink and to put the rubbish in the bin as well. The one thing that I do keep a hold of is my spatula, because I use my spatula, especially with a stand mixer, I find this, to push the dough down to make sure it gets fully combined. So I push the sides of it down, because otherwise it can just mix the sort of interior bit and you end up with flour patches. So just make sure you do, make sure it's all fully combined, and then it is time for rolling and shaping. Okay, so I just want to show you the consistency of what we have. As you can see, it's sort of really wanting to form together now. All of the ingredients have been nice and well combined, and now it's time to roll everything out. So what we need to do, as you can see, I've taken this off the stand mixer. This space is now clear because I've used all of my ingredients for now anyway. Once you plain flour back, let's make sure the side is completely clear. I'm going to push this further back actually, just so I've got plenty of space to work with. And I'm going to just I'm going to dust my side, as you can see, using quite a generous amount, as well as dusting my rolling pin, because it is quite a sticky dough. It will try and stick together, so obviously just try and keep your side and your pin well sort of powdered. So now I'm just going to really make sure it's sticking together well, make sure everything's, like I said, combined. And we are going to roll it out to just about a centimetre, a couple of millimetres thick, to be able to shape our sides. And the reason I've still got the scales out is just because I'm using that to get sort of a straight edge. And I'm going to use my palette knife to make sure I've got a nice sharp edge, because the palette knife, because it's got no blade, it doesn't drag or anything, and I can just use it to press down either side. And then what I need, my trays are over there. You need, no, wrong one, baking paper, so the white one, not baking parchment, and you want this on your tray to stop it from sticking. So I'm just going to prep my trays and then we will get this all ready. Okay, so I've just put in the oven that first tray, which was one long side and one front or back of the house, so a long side and a short side. So we do want a little rectangle house. I'm now going to take some more dough and do the same process again. They're in for 15 minutes. I did preheat my oven. It is a fan electric assisted, and it was preheated at 160, and like I said, they bake for 15 minutes. So let's do it again. I've now finally put the last batch in. I did make up another dough just to be able to make sure I had enough for the roof as well. If I bring you over here, this is what I am working with at the minute. So we've got 2 slightly bigger bits, 2 smaller bits, and then 2 sort of in between size. So obviously we've got 2 slightly bigger sides, 2 smaller, and the roofs. I've managed to make some, well, 4 each of the, that's the cat, sorry, 4 each of the biscuits. The only thing I will say about the biscuits, the reindeer was quite hard to get out. The reindeer really didn't want to come out, but they have been made. I've got one final batch of big cookies, gingerbread in the oven. I'm gonna wash up. As you can see, I've got my washing up because that is something sensible you have to do when you are doing baking. But out of the 2 doughs, I've been able to get my base shape for my gingerbread house. I've also been able to get some of the smaller but fatter cookies, and then I have also, if I can just quickly show you in here, in there, made some, I don't even know if you saw that, slightly bigger cookies like gingerbread men. I've got a little house which I'm going to decorate as Christmas in our first home, and what else, gingerbread man, gingerbread lady, and Christmas trees. So I've been able to get quite a lot out of this recipe, so I will link the recipe down in the description. Now what I need to do, I need to leave these to cool completely before I start decorating, because otherwise the royal icing won't set and it won't stick together. So like I said, I'm going to tidy up, let this last batch cook, and I'm probably going to leave these a good half an hour to cool before I actually do anything to them. Hey everyone, so it's now the next day and I didn't realise I hadn't pressed record, but I'm just going to show you what I've been doing. So I've mixed up my royal icing in this here. I used a hand whisk, and then put it into a piping bag. As you can see, I've created the base. I'm just letting that sort of fully set, which it's not far off now, but I want it to fully set before I put the roof on. And as you can see, I did create a straight line for the roof to sit onto, so I did that and I have stuck all that together. And then I was just starting on the roof when I realised I hadn't pressed record. So as you can see, these white lines are just standard royal icing, and then I've put chocolate drops, milk and white chocolate drops as a decoration. So now I am going to, I need to change the setting on them lights. Now I am going to add the door, the windows, and do a little bit of decoration to the house. So I will set you up and we'll do a little time lapse of decorating. The one top tip when it comes to royal icing, which any kind of icing really, start with your water, and sort of, I started with about 30 or 40 mils and then added my icing to it and whisked it up little by little. Don't bung it all in, especially don't put your powder in and then add your water and then realise you've got too much and haven't got enough powder to correct it. But I did buy royal icing, but you can do it with standard icing sugar, and I think it's egg whites, but I did buy royal icing and just water to mix it up. Like I said, you don't need a lot, especially if you're using a hand mixer. You can hear when the consistency is thick enough, because the sound of you can hear the stand mixer working kind of thing. So yeah, that's my top tip. So let's get decorating. Okay, so now I'm just going to create the door and the windows with my royal icing. I am just letting the base firm up before I put the lid on, because I don't want it to fall off. The one thing that I did do when I put the roof on, which you will see in a minute, is I just used something just to prop it up, just to make sure that it would stay in place. And I'm just creating a little bit of snow around the bottom. I did decide to go back and add some more because I liked the look of it, but I went with quite a traditional gingerbread house, sort of a bit Hansel and Gretel with the sweet sort of chocolate drop style, but a nice snowy one, snow winter scene, because it's December and why not? The one thing I will say is just make sure that your royal icing is firm enough before you start putting anything together, because if it slips, there's no coming back from that. There's no saving it, apart from breaking it apart and starting again, and it can take a while. This took me about a full hour to fully come up with my design, decorate it, but it was well worth it in the end. So as you can see, I'm just sticking the roof on, and once this roof is in place, I'm going to go along the top and seal it with some more royal icing, and I decorated with midget gems across the top on the peak. And then the little marshmallow that is at the front that you can see at the minute, that will become my chimney, because we can't have a little cottage without a chimney. Okay, so as you can see, I've done a little more. I wasn't really sure what design I was going for, so I thought I would have a little play off camera. But as you can see, I've done a couple of little trees and a little snowman with a little pink hat and scarf. So I'm just going to show you, this is just some normal fondant icing. I just got the one from Tesco's, and this is some gel food colouring. It's a white icing, so you can pretty much turn it into any colour you want. You literally need, for the amount that I've got in my hand, as you can see, it's like maybe the size of my thumb pad. You just want sort of one dollop like that in the middle, and then start turning it in and blending it through. Now you will get messy hands, but don't worry, because you can wash it off. And if it starts to get a bit too sticky, you can put your hands in some icing sugar, because pretty much that is what it is. And just add some icing sugar to it, and you'll be able to start blending and mixing your colour. And as you can see, that's starting to change colour now. It does take a little bit to get it worked in, and my hands are quite warm, so that is why it is sticking to me. It's literally sticking to everything. But I am going to put this out now, and I will show you my finished result in a minute. So as you can see, this is the final house. I went for a mix between Hansel and Gretel's house with all the sweets and the chocolate drops and a proper snowy Christmas cottage. And the snow I just created using the royal icing, just let it drip off the edges. And I showed you obviously how I did my little fondant decorations, and to finish it all off I sprayed with glitter spray. It's edible, don't worry. But if you like this, please give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe to see more Christmassy stuff. And if you do try out this and make your own gingerbread house, tag me on Instagram and let me see what you